This week, as I said, we're talking about the show CYBERSIX. It is, it ran for one season in the late 90s on Canadian television. I don't think was it ever aired in the U.S.?
I think it was aired like on the Fox box or something like that.
It's all on Hulu. It's pretty easy to watch. Let's go into the history of this show and what form it started in, which was as a Argentine comic published in an Italian comics magazine. The magazine was called Scorpio, spelled with a K, because of course, created by two guys named Carlos. I'm looking them up.
Carlos Meglia and Carlos Trillo.
Trio.
And Megila.
Megila.
Yeah, the original material and the cartoon that we're going to be talking about today differ a lot tonally.
Like a lot. Because
it's not the kind of comic book you would think would be adapted to children's media.
No. I don't know whose idea this was.
And I think that ultimately leads to some of the weakness of the show, is that it was so kind of neutered from what its original thing that they had trouble pulling it back together. Like, it's a pretty solid show, but it's far from the best thing I've ever seen. When I watched the first two episodes a while back, I was like, this is kind of cool. It's like, I mean, obviously they're trying to be Batman, and they're not pulling it off, but they're doing some interesting stuff. And then after that, it fell into formula.
Yep.
Yeah. It mostly like the only like the best thing I can say about it is was the animation.
Yeah.
Just great animation.
And voice acting is solid enough.
Oh yeah.
My problem with the show more than anything is that the concept is so solid, but they don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing. Because the second to last episode, to me, is the most interesting, because it's the only time they actually push their concept.
Yeah.
But it's the second to last episode.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that. But CYBERSIX, most people probably don't know what it is, so let's let you know exactly the plot. It's about this cybernetic, artificially created person, superhero, named CYBERSIX, who was part of a cyber series that was created by the evil Dr. von Riker, who was an escapee SSS and Nazi scientist who ran away to Argentina.
Which is a real thing that happened for a lot of those fucks.
Yeah, he was based on primarily Joseph Mengele.
Oh, that piece of shit? I hate that guy.
He did.
I hate him.
I hate him so much. He's the worst.
Yes.
That guy got away? Fuck.
Yeah, he fled to Argentina after Adolf Eichmann was captured under the name Jose Mengele. So that's where he comes from, and also the name Jose, which is the little clone son the guy makes for himself. Basically, he's a straight-up Nazi, and he's in Argentina and totally free and just creating all these weird-ass experiments because he can. And he made this whole line of... he originally worked on the concentration camps, that's important. And he implanted cybernetic organs into the bodies of dead prisoners in an attempt to bring them back to life to serve in the Führer's army. This was in the comics.
Not zero Nazi symbolism. They don't even hint at it.
No, there's one piece. When he and Jose walk the goose step.
Oh my god, I just thought they were dumb.
And their uniforms were very Nazi-esque. Like, Jose looks like a little Nazi youth with his shorts.
Little Hitler youth.
Yeah.
God.
But like that's the extent of it, honestly.
Yeah. So anyway, he creates this cyber series, which were these artificial humanoids that were really strong and really agile. And there was 5,000 of these things. And they were supposed to be perfect servants for him, like basically his own little army to further the Führer's plans or something. I don't know. But apparently they were too similar to humans, They had human emotions, they had free will, and they disobeyed him a lot. So he's like, fuck them. I know how holocausts work. I'll just do it again. So he killed all of them, except for one that managed to escape, and that's CYBERSIX, who is our hero. Again, none of this is in the TV show, but I thought it would be helpful for some background here. And she actually escapes with the help of a black slave who hid her away in a fishing village. But von Richter eventually caught up to the guy and killed him. But she managed to escape and happened upon the fictitious city of Meridiana, which is where the show takes place and where the comics take place. And one of the interesting things about CYBERSIX herself as this superhero is that she has, to me, probably the best secret identity.
Yeah.
Like, ever.
Yes.
When she first arrived in the city, she witnessed a car wreck in which a young boy was killed and sort of jumped in that situation and replaced the identity of that boy and sort of lived the life of this guy named Adrienne Seidelman. And so she basically lives her life as this man because, you know, she doesn't really have an identity or anything like that, so she needed to get one to hide from von Richter and to sort of fit into society. And as an adult, she's this high school English teacher in kind of a shitty school, or at least she teaches shit kids.
Do you mean kids?
Nina, why did you say the same word twice?
And another thing that's important to note that the show talks about when it feels like it,
Yeah.
but not all the time.
I think literally twice. I think in the first and last episodes only.
Yeah, all of von Richter's creations depend on this thing he created called sustenance, which is like this green neon-y liquid that they have to consume in order to live. So she, in order to continue living, sort of depends on von Richter sending in goons to go after her so she can kill them and, you know, drink their sustenance. In the comic, she actually, like, drank it out of their necks, and she did it by, like, seducing them. In the cartoon, they poof and turn into a very convenient little vial, like a video game.
Oh God, I completely because they mentioned I read the Wikipedia article, so I knew about sustenance, and I was like, oh, I guess I missed it in the first episode, so I was like, oh, I guess they just don't have that subplot here. But then at the very end, they were like, I can break your addiction, I can break your need for sustenance, and I was like, when was this ever?
Just the first episode. Like,
great.
Yeah. So now we're in where the show starts out. CYBERSIX is Adrienne. She's a high school teacher. She becomes friends with I think he's a biology teacher or a chemistry teacher.
I think he talked about both.
Yeah, he might have just been the science teacher. Remember, kind of shitty high school.
You kids are too dumb for specific fields. Here's how the world works. Atoms.
And, you know, she just runs around the city in this really awesome costume that has this lovely Zorro hat. As impractical as it is, but it's cool. Anyway. And she's being pursued by von Richter's various monsters, including his son clone, Jose, which is this shitty little kid. Like, he's especially shitty.
Yeah.
And he's basically the main villain for every episode, except for the second to last one. Another reason why I really like that episode.
Yeah.
And she falls in love with Lucas, but of course she's like, as a guy, so she can't express it. But they can become really close friends. But then later she meets him as CYBERSIX, and he's totally into her because of course he is.
Because he has eyeballs.
Yeah. She's so...
I've got two eyes and a dick, don't I?
But I really love how different she looks in her secret identity versus her hero identity. Like, it's not just the costume and the glasses, but like she wears makeup as a superhero heroine, which really changes her face, and she does her hair differently, and like her posture and body language is different.
Yeah, as Adrienne, she's definitely wearing a binder and probably like some kind of shoulder pads.
Yeah.
Because when she's presenting as Adrienne, she's got a very masculine build.
Yeah, to the point where one of her shitty students has a crush on her, thinking that she's a guy.
Or not caring.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I think it's supposed to be that she thinks she's a guy.
Oh yeah, no, totally. It's just you know, regardless, I think I think they're good looking either way.
Yeah, totally.
Adrienne's adorable.
Yeah, no, Adrienne and CYBERSIX are both very attractive people.
Yeah. And as Adrienne, she deepens her voice. You can. It's still very high pitched for a man's voice, but here we go. What do you want?
It works well enough. I love how Adrienne wears suspenders and a belt.
Maybe that's not. I think maybe because I thought okay they also wear super baggy clothing, kind of
Yeah, maybe she needs the extra lift because
otherwise everybody's gonna see them hips and be like, wait a sec,
those are too cool for a dude.
But yeah, those aren't on guys. Otherwise, I would be way more into more men.
But the origin of her costume is also explained in the comics, but obviously not in the show because she took it off a prostitute that she found.
That was a styling prostitute.
Yeah.
Hells yeah. Well, I'm assuming she modified it.
A prostitute wearing a cape is pretty weird.
Like a big Spawn cape. I guess it was the 90s. Maybe that was the thing.
Everybody was wearing capes in the 90s. You just blocked it out.
I wish. Let's bring capes back.
I wish A, that everybody was wearing capes, and B, that I had blocked out the 90s.
No, CyberSix's design is like if Carmen Sandiego was Spawn instead of the guy that became Spawn.
Yeah, whoever that dumbass was.
I don't know, some dude. He died. It was like revenge. It's like you were my friend, but oh no, now you're bumping my wife. And then I don't know. John Leguizamo was there. It was weird.
I'm gonna be in Mortal Kombat X because who fucking cares about any of this?
But yeah, as a little baby cyber, because that's the thing about the cybers, they age physically, which is kind of weird. But as a little baby cyber, she fucking she took the dead original Adrienne's body out of the car, buried it, and then assumed his position before anyone could notice, which was
that must have been
did she
a not very populated area of the crash.
I guess.
Did she bury him in the street underneath the car?
I don't know.
Just shoved him down a gutter.
I don't know. I haven't read the whole comic because, interestingly enough, one of the few languages it hasn't been translated into is English. But it's in Italian,
yeah, it was
Spanish,
very popular
Japanese,
in Japan.
Chinese, but not English.
You mean
German?
You mean America doesn't care about media outside its own country? No.
Yeah, it was very popular in Japan, and the show was produced by a lot of Japanese people. It was produced in Canada, but a lot of the directors and stuff were Japanese.
Yeah, and writers.
You can tell. It's very animated. A lot of the boarding is fantastic, but anime more than the Western knows how to cut corners with frame rate. There's some stuff that's less animated, but it's boarded so well and they time it so well that you don't really notice unless you're staring at it super hard or you're under the influence of substances. But I don't know that. That's not a thing that I do because I love Jesus.
A few more quick facts before we get into it. Originally, there was a live-action series in Argentina that had
I looked that up.
2 episodes.
It was wildly unpopular.
That was apparently really bad, and I can't imagine it being good because she jumps 50 feet in the air. And how would you do that?
I think it must have literally just been she runs on the screen, but before she shows up on the shot, it's a whoosh sound. That's how I would do it if I had no budget and I was in or wherever they filmed it.
And obviously, there's a pretty big not a big difference, but there's a significant difference in CyberSix's body between the comics and the show. In the show, she's got a much more athletic build, whereas in the comics, she's a bit more Booby Town. And she's
Booby
already
Town's
kind of
superhero
Booby
crap.
Town where she's at in the show. Whatever. And one more little thing is that according to the introduction in the comic, the idea for the story about like this tortured life that escaped during a genetic experiment was inspired by the Elsa and Mario Rios incident that made headlines in the mid-'80s. And I'm not really well researched on that, but the fact that it's based on real stuff is kind of like, what the hell?
I mean, it just seems like a really like it's such an interesting like concept, and it has such an interesting history. Like it not like, and not only is it a shame that the TV series didn't really warrant a second season, but at least somebody translate the comic.
Yeah, there's a fan translation, but it would be nice. Like, get Dark Horse on that shit.
This sounds right up Dark Horse's alley.
I know, and they have their whole initiative where they're translating foreign comics. I mean, they got Akira. Why can't they do this? I don't know.
Well, I mean, Akira is Akira.
I mean, it's not on the same level, but still, like, you know, why not?
Hey.
But yeah, the Rios incident, it was a millionaire couple, wanted to have children. Though each had children from former marriages, they were unable to conceive together. 3 of the wife's egg cells were removed and successfully fertilized in the laboratory with sperm from an anonymous donor, which is why wouldn't they use the sperm from the guy, but okay. One of the resulting live embryos was then implanted in her womb. The 2 remaining embryos were frozen to preserve them for future implantation. The implanted embryo had to be aborted after 10 days. Sometime later, they went to South America to adopt a child. And then they were a car crash and that child died. Or something.
Dang.
And they all died. And then the question was like, who is going to inherit these frozen babies?
Oh.
And I guess, like, it was just this whole thing about, like, do we put them in a womb? Do we actually turn them into babies? And I guess it was just this whole thing, and that inspired this idea of, like...
That's nuts.
Genetic morality and stuff.
What did they do with them?
I mean...
You've got me on the edge of my seat now. I paid for the whole seat. I only need the edge.
I'm reading this as I go.
Dang.
Live.
Like,
it's weird because they're considered property of this couple.
So, I mean, like, I don't know how, like, it doesn't property of a dead person that isn't willed away go to the state?
Yep, yeah. But then they're like, can we do that?
Can the government own embryos?
And yeah, and they're like, who should decide what we do with them? Like, who has that authority? I mean, I have to read this whole article to figure out what happened to these poor babies. But, like, that's weird. Oh, apparently a baby was born from the embryo that had been frozen.
Gasp!
What? Okay, never mind. So yeah, interesting source material, to be sure. Really fascinating stuff. Very dark from what I've read about it. Very sexually charged, violent stuff. With a lot of moral questions and genocide and Nazis. So basically everything you don't want in a kid's show.
Yeah.
So we made a kid show about it.
It's a comic book. Kids read those. What is this? This is like a Batman? It's like an Archie. Let's do it. Draw it.
What if JonTron had produced this TV show? Anyway. Alright, so yeah, the comparisons to Batman are, I think, pretty valid, because the show is, I think, trying to be Batman, and it can't because it doesn't have the stable of interesting villains. It's got one shitty kid.
Yeah, and a whole bunch of dumb, replaceable, identical goons.
Yeah, the Frenchy Frankensteins.
The fixed ideas.
Fixed ideas, like Testament's original theme song, if I can make a reference that no one will get.
Always. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, I mean they got as far as like muscle goons as far as like muscly dumbass goons go, they did okay, but like they're not interesting. And the thing is, Jose he's just annoying. He's not. I feel like they could have pushed it a bit more if it was again a show that could go in darker places.
I feel like it could have gone in darker places though, because Batman went in darker places, and people were fine with that.
Batman had Warner Brothers behind it, giving it the okay, and like the Burton movies were successful at the time, so they had a lot more leeway. Like these guys. Yeah,
but this was coming after Batman.
This is '99.
So after that precedent, they're like, oh, okay. Maybe we can be more dark. I don't know. Gargoyles was Disney, and they got away with some stuff. Like, I don't know.
It's less more about precedent and more about just like who your higher ups are and what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess these Canadian guys weren't going for it.
Also, the weird thing about Jose is like this. It's one of those rare occurrences where a child is voiced by a child, and it's jarring.
Yeah,
he's voiced by Alex Doduk. And it's interesting because all of these voice actors have like done stuff, like some of the same stuff. So a lot of early anime and like Barbie movies.
Well, it's probably mostly because, like, you know, when like they're Canadian, so like they can only do some set stuff. Very few voice actors can work in both fields. Like Tara Strong can, due to her dual citizenship. But yeah.
Yeah, so they were limited to Canadian stuff, and they all work together on stuff.
The voice actress of CyberSix, Kathleen Westluck, was Spike in the Equestria Girls movies.
Well, yeah, also just My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic in general. Like the Equestria Girls movies keep they're technically canon with Friendship is Magic.
No, she was also Chaozu.
I just saw the oh shit.
Yeah, no, she was in Dragon Ball Z, a lot of classic Gundam, Hamtaro, Inuyasha, Ranma Half, like that era of dubbing. Death Note. Yeah, a lot of Barbie. A lot of Barbie.
She was in that Mega Man show that you don't like because you can't.
She was in Reboot. People want us to talk about Reboot. She was in that. And a lot of these people were. I also think the guy who did Lucas was also in Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, he was Nappa.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I assume since it was Canadian, then that means it was probably the original Ocean Group dub. So he's probably
Ocean Studios version.
Yeah, so he specifically is the like Vegeta. What does the scouter say about his power level? He's the meme voice.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And of course that means he did a million other voices because they all did a million voices on that original dub.
Oh yeah, no. Well, actually, Ocean Group did their own did a dub of everything after Funimation got their own in-house people, but it only aired outside of the US. So yeah, Ocean Studios did the whole Dragon Ball. It's really weird.
He was Mojo Jojo in Powerpuff Girls Z.
Ah, yeah. It's so weird.
And then we have some ties to Ed, Edd and Eddy as well, because that's another Canadian production. The voice of Von Riker, Terry Klassen, was the voice director for Ed, Edd and Eddy, and also the voice of Eddie's older brother.
Oh, wow.
And then the voice of one of my favorite characters, Laurie, Jancy Jod, was the voice of Lee on Ed, Edd and Eddy. And you can kind of hear it.
I think that's Janice.
Janice? Maybe.
Or Janice?
Janice?
Names.
Yeah, she's the lady who played Lee and Sarah.
Oh yeah,
is in the show.
Yeah.
And you could totally hear it.
Yeah.
Oh, she's on Dragon Tales. I love that show. Okay. Anyway, so voice. Yeah, that's voice. They're all that crew. You know that crew. If you know that crew,
the Canadian VA crew.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a legitimate crew.
So the structure of the show, having to cut away a lot of the stuff from the comics, is in a CyberSix. No, Jose tries to get CYBERSIX, like he's fucking Dick Dastardly. And, and she's got to stop him from getting her is usually the only thing. And like he Jose thinks that he runs the city, and I suppose does to an extent, but we don't really see it, honestly. No. So like there's an episode with a gigantic eye bulb where it's like hypnotizing people. I don't know to what end.
I think it's just like stealing their souls.
Yeah.
Basically. Well, I think that's how it feeds, because it gets bigger the more people it hypnotizes.
Yeah. That episode had the most blatant Chekhov's gun I've ever seen. It's like, in the beginning, Lucas is teaching his students about liquid nitrogen. I'm like, that's going to be how she beats the monster at the end.
Yeah, I made that. I noticed that. Like, literally, anytime, if you see or hear any mention in a work of fiction about liquid nitrogen, somebody's going to use it in the third act to freeze something. I almost want to make a story where there's liquid nitrogen in it, but then I don't do it, and then everyone who reads it is really uncomfortable and they're not 100% sure why.
Yeah, I mean, the script of this show, it feels unfinished. Like, it feels, a lot of the dialogue sounds like placeholders to me. It's more like, okay, they're going to have a conversation, this is essentially what they're going to say, then we move on to this scene. But they don't actually, like, go back and actually, like, add any character or realism or depth to the
pacing's clunky.
Yeah.
It just kind of goes through the motions from scene to scene.
Yeah. And it's the same way with, like, the overall plot. It's like, okay, it's like, here's the basic setup. And it just sort of feels like you're watching the basic setup, but they're not actually, like, really, really executing it. Because it's kind of like an empty feeling.
Yeah. I had trouble staying focused, so I was doing some other stuff while I was watching, which is a shame because, like, I wanted to, like, keep focus on it because visually it's a really good-looking show. I also love the character design. It's really interesting to me.
It's really unique.
Because, like, some stuff is super realistic and super gross, but then other times it'll be, like, some character designs are a little more cartoony than others. And it reminded me a lot of, like, you know, well, Europe, like European or non-American comics in their basic design and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I was always fascinated by the rectangular hair
that
everyone had.
Yeah, and like whenever their hair was supposed to be like buzzed or short or just not long, it was like rectangle chunks on their skin. Like Jose.
It's unique.
I like it. Yeah, I dug it. Although like it, I think also it didn't know what it wanted to be because like it was going for that like dark Gargoyles, Batman, not late, like mid-late 90s tone, but then other times, like, somebody would do something and just be like a Hanna-Barbera, like...
Yeah, I felt like the
sound
design
there was so many Hanna-Barbera... That was not on point.
Yeah, and then, like, the music, it's very repetitive. Like, everybody has their own theme, and it's the exact same theme every time they're on screen.
Mm-hmm.
The opening and closing theme songs, that's how you can tell it's Japanese. They're super weird. Especially the closing theme song, because Western cartoons don't have those.
Yeah.
And they're especially not super melodramatic, female-driven ballads.
No.
Which is ending theme of every anime.
Like, apparently they recorded a full version of the opening song, but it was never released. So, diehard fans are very sad about that.
All 6 of them.
There it is.
No, I mean, this show does have a following in a way, because it I mean, for where it aired, it was pretty unique, and it was, I get the feeling it was one of those shows that was on at, like, weird times, and you just sort of happened upon it.
Probably.
And because it's so visually striking, especially CYBERSIX herself is so visually striking that, like, it leaves an impact on your brain. And sometimes you sort of fill in the gaps to make it seem like it was more than it was.
And I'm sure if you only saw, like, a couple of episodes, you might actually think higher of it because you don't realize how formulaic it became.
Yeah.
Any episode taken out of context, it's like, oh, this is pretty cool. But then you realize, oh, that's every one.
Yeah, and I mean, it was originally going to have 2 seasons of 13 episodes, so they might have done more with it. Maybe. but they didn't.
I've never been a fan of operating under the assumption if you're going to get another season. I mean, like, maybe they were guaranteed it, and then somebody was like, no, sorry you thought that. But, yeah, I don't know. You gotta hit heavy, especially in the late 90s, before we have this whole phenomenon of, like, every great cartoon getting 7 seasons in a movie. Hey, what's up? Like, that didn't happen back then, ever.
Yeah. So I guess let's talk about episodes.
Yeah, let's talk about that favorite episode of yours.
Yeah. So my favorite episode, I think, is by far the best one. Though there are some good bits in other ones, is the 12th episode called Daylight Devil.
Yeah.
I can't recall the name of the villain in that one, but it wasn't Jose. It was this cool, like...
Shark lady.
Sharky alien lady. She was the latest creation by Von Richter. She had like invisibility powers and like this claw. And why I liked it, as I mentioned earlier, is that they really took this great premise and like did something fun with it. Where, CyberSix is being hunted by this lady, and she's actually pretty good at what she does, unlike everybody else, and she gets injured.
Griselda.
Griselda. Yeah, Griselda injures CyberSix, which we haven't really seen happen before. To the point where, like, even Data... Oh, we haven't talked about Data 7.
We'll get to Data 7.
Okay, we'll get to Data 7. Is worried about her. And then the next day is a field trip in her Adrienne persona. So she has to go on this field trip. Data 7 is worried about her, so, he starts following her to make sure she's okay. But that actually leads Griselda on her track. And so it's basically like this, this cat and mouse chase with Adrienne, not being able to tell anybody what's happening and being chased by this crazy person, being injured and weakened. And like there's some really neat moments where like in the hospital where, she's really adamant where she's like, no, I can't, no hospital, because she's, for one thing, she's not human, but she doesn't even have like any official papers or any of this stuff. Like, she's really posing as one of us, and a medical institution like that would be like immediately dead giveaway. You're some kind of weird imposter person. And it's also the only episode where we're outside of the city. So we're in this countryside, we're on this bus filled with all these high schoolers. And it's the only time where CyberSix is really put in like an actual precarious situation where she can't get help from any of her usual allies because she's not CyberSix, she's Adrienne. And she has to, like, be careful with what she's doing. And it was just nice to see a villain that wasn't Jose, and there's actually kind of a neat moment at the end. I mean, could have been pushed farther, but I was happy enough with the fact that they did anything with it at all. A little bit.
Yeah, I agree. It was a refreshing change of pace. It was, like you said, definitely using the setup for more than just set dressing.
Mm-hmm. Because that's why I heard about the show and was like, wow, that's such a cool idea. Everything about that is so cool, and you could do so many things with it. And the fact that she has this fascinating superhero and secret identity dynamic, that it's got like gender things, and she's a teacher, and like all this stuff that they could have had a lot of fun with.
It's a show that's definitely worth checking out, but like it could be so much better, and I guess that's what our focus is on.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like since it didn't really get its due, I feel like, I don't know, this is one of those instances where it could totally do better if somebody wanted to like bring it back or reboot it in some fashion or another. They could do a lot more with the concept in today's market.
Yeah, I would love that. Like, I feel like now is a good time to do something with it, like,
because
bring back the comic, do something.
You could either go an adult route because there's an adult animation media now, or even if you wanted to keep it for children, you can get away with a lot more these days. So it could absolutely work. They probably still won't be Nazis, but
yeah, but they'll still be evil dudes. And like, the comic must have had like other villains or other things, going on
I hope so.
with it. Like, it had to have. And, like, everything about her is so cool. She's got this sick, awesome costume. She's so hot. She's so, like, acrobatic the way that she fights, jumping around rooftops. Her secret identity is so solid. She's got a pet brother Black Panther as her sidekick, which is so stupidly cool. And
Yes,
I love it.
That's pretty baller. She's just like the embodiment of like some kind of hair metal album cover personified.
I love it.
I wanted more, like, specifically things I wanted more of, besides all the stuff all the obvious stuff we're talking about. I was expecting a lot more accidental, is this gay, I'm confused moments between Lucas and CYBERSIX in her secret identity.
Yeah, because there's this one scene where, like, Lucas is like, hey, you want to catch a movie? And Adrienne's like, oh, what's playing? Romance. And he, like, winks at him. And
yeah! And I was like, bruh, you don't... I mean, I guess you're just super into that, but you just are totally self-aware, like not even self-aware of it. But Jesus, yeah, I wanted more of that. I wanted some Mulan levels of how do I feel about this person?
And they could have totally done it because we know CYBERSIX is a girl, like that will get past all the censors.
Oh yeah, totally.
Anyway, so like. But, like, Adrienne was such a shitty friend. Like, Adrienne would just show up, say some smart aleck BS, and then leave, and not pay for things, and not answer any of, like, Lucas's questions. And it was like, why is Lucas friends with this guy? He's not a nice, fun guy.
Because they're both teachers, they see each other all day, and they don't have lives outside of their jobs, so it's either him or no one.
I guess. It's pretty sad.
They're teachers.
Or I would have liked to see more stuff in the school.
Yeah.
Because, like, that's a neat secret identity job to have. Because, like, you have these connections with these kids, and it's like...
It actually puts you under more scrutiny than you would probably like.
Totally. And, you know, like, I found Laurie very entertaining. I would have liked more of her or other kids that were maybe different from her or similar to her. I don't know. Just more color.
Yeah, the older kids, because, like, I had enough Julian. I don't need more Julian.
Oh, I don't... What was the point of Julian?
I don't know. I think the main issue is he didn't have a point, because, like, not a lot of minor characters in this show had a point. Like, I feel like if he was in it more, it would have been better, because he was in it so little, it's like, why even hear in the first place at all? I didn't mind him. I liked him more than Jose.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I liked him more than Jose. And, like, you know, he was a little street urchin kid, and he gave CYBERSIX some humanity or something, but, like... Yeah.
But that's the thing, like, there was never a plot point where, like, she didn't have any. They tried to pull that, but it didn't work.
Which was definitely a thing in the comics. Like,
Sure.
from the little that I read, it's always, like, her, like, going on these internal monologues about how I'm a monster, and I'm unlovable, and I'm this freak, and, like, what am I? I don't belong here. Why are these people nice to me? Stuff. Which, I mean, sounds really annoying, but...
Kind of just sounds like she has depression.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it, considering her background.
Yeah.
But then there are, like, a lot of characters they sort of just introduce and, you know, because they only have 13 episodes, they don't do anything with. Like, Yashimoto, who is pretty cool.
Yeah, he was cool. I liked that episode.
I like Yashimoto, but that was only the one episode.
Just that one.
Just the one. And then that one detective, the other detective.
Enrique.
Enrique.
Oh, yeah.
Who is best friends with Julian, and, like, that's weird.
Why doesn't he just adopt him or something?
Yeah, that's the other thing about Julian. It's like, oh, I'm going to help you out, Julian, but I can't let you live with me because that's going to compromise my whole scene, so you live in this abandoned subway station.
No, that was Data 7 that lived in the subway station. Julian lived in the abandoned boat by the docks.
He's got to keep that street urchin street cred. He can't just get adopted. It's gonna ruin his whole thing.
They'll make him cut his stupid hair.
Make him cut his front ponytail that like half the characters in this bizarre show have.
God.
I mean, that's taken from the original art. I mean, guy just has an interesting style.
Yeah, I super dug the style, though.
Yeah, I mean, I can't name anything that's quite like it.
Yeah, not.
Also,
Absolutely not.
The final episode was pretty good, even though I felt like it didn't quite deserve a lot of the heaviness that it was trying to
Nah, not at all.
convey. Because it's, you know, there hasn't been that much stuff, actually.
So build up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have earned that, but it hadn't entirely.
No. But it was definitely one of the better episodes, and that's why I was kind of sad, because, like, the last two were really good, and even The Greatest Show in Meridiana was pretty good-ish, I think. I don't know. It was like, it was getting better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, no.
So.
Full Moon Fascination was dumb. It's a werewolf one.
Oh, yeah. There's always got to be that one episode, like that one episode in the late 90s, early 2000s cartoons where a lady shows up and a dude character's all about them, and everybody's like, this chick is clearly bad news, and he's like, no, you don't even understand, everybody go away, I fit up with this world, and then at the end it's like, sorry guys, I had a boner. Every cartoon! All of them.
I didn't have any blood in my brain and made a bad decision.
I made a boo-boo.
Yeah, I mean, if you're curious, you know, check it out, I guess. I mean, it feels very Saturday morning cartoon.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing if you're kind of nostalgic for that kind of thing.
I mean, it was. It aired on Fox Kids.
But, you know, the animation is really nice.
I love that sequence, and they actually play this in, like, every other episode, where she jumps out of Lucas's window and hops from roof to roof. And the way that you can tell that the cape is being pulled by the wind, the way they're, like, tapers and flutters, that's really good. They were super proud of it, so they kept putting it in the show.
I know, I mean, that cape stuff was crazy. Like, that would have driven someone insane, but they, like, didn't really hold back on it. And she looked great. And it's a cool idea, you know, if you want to, like, see what these characters might look like moving around. It's neat. It's also just sort of a fascinating little random show that, like, kind of flew under the radar for good reason, but also it's like, huh, this is a thing that happened.
Yeah.
I want to explore it.
Yeah, if you want to, you know, have some fun with a deep cut cartoon, if you want to be able to, like, pull out cartoon references that no one will get, if you want to be if you want to go out to the boneyard, then, yeah, CyberSix, you could do a lot worse.
Totally. And, I mean, there's that comic, I guess.
Yeah.
That's been fan-translated.
Or if you can read other languages.
If you can read
Yeah,
Espanol, then you're good.
Or Italian, or
Yeah.
other stuff.
Something.